Welcome back. In the previous video, we learned about the them tool and the isolated virtual environments it creates. In this video, we will take a look at how to format docstrings for maximum readability and how to transform them into structured and formatted documentation. PEP 257 documents the expectations of Python programmers and tools with respect to docstrings. The basic rules are quite simple. Use triple quotes to delimit the docstring. Triple quotes are how Python expresses the idea of a multi-line text string. The closing triple quotes should be on a line of its own if your docstring is longer than one line. The first line should present a short description of the thing being documented, such as return the distance between points A and B. After the first line, we can either end the docstring or insert a blank line, followed by a more in-depth description of the documented object, containing descriptions of parameters, attributes, usage semantics, examples, and so on. The reason for this layout is that many tools show the first line of the docstring as a pop-up, tooltip, or otherwise present it as a quick reference. The text after the blank line is presented when detailed documentation is requested. The docstring processing tools are smart about indentation, so it's safe and encouraged to indent our docstrings so that they match up with the rest of the code block that they're describing. Those basic rules are all that are required to make our docstrings interact well with Python's PyDoc and help tools with IDEs and so on. But they don't give us any way of creating well-formatted standalone documentation. That's where Sphinx comes into play. Sphinx is a tool that can process Python source code and standalone documentation files and generate nicely formatted documentation in a number of formats, notably including HTML. Sphinx, like other Python documentation tools, recognizes a markup language called restructured text, which is intentionally readable and informative, even when its markup presented as plain text rather than being interpreted. Restructured text documents are still readable in a simple text editor, but when we feed them through a tool like Sphinx, they make the end result richer. Restructured text syntax is based on the conventions that developed on the internet before actual rich text was widely available in email and real-time chat. So, for example, words are emphasized by putting an asterisk at each end, and emphasized further by making that into two asterisks. Paragraphs are marked by placing a blank line between them. Their syntax for list, headings, and so on, all plainly readable in text mode. The syntax is nicely described in the Python Developer's Guide, but we're going to concentrate on a few bits of markup that do a lot to enhance the documentation for our modules and packages. We've actually already mentioned one of those bits of markup. When our docstrings make reference to a local variable, such as a function parameter, that reference should be enclosed in asterisks to emphasize it and make it distinct from the normal text of the documentation. The names of modules, classes, functions, methods, attributes, exceptions, global variables, and constants should all be marked properly so that the Sphinx can cross-reference them and create links to their documentation. All of these object types share a similar syntax, which is that we put a type identifying keyword between colons, immediately followed by the name of the object in back quotes. As you see in this example with classes and methods, the keywords are mod for modules, class for classes, func for functions, meth for methods, attr for attributes, data for variables, and const for constants. That's enough restructured text syntax to make a big difference in the quality of our documentation. So we're going to leave it there and move on to talking about how to actually use the Sphinx tool. If it's not already installed, we can install it using PEP. Sphinx can do a lot, so it's worth working through the tutorial on sphinx-doc.org. It's quite nice. For our own purposes, though, all we're interested in is turning docstrings into HTML, so we'll work through that process here. We're going to generate HTML documentation for our example package, which is just a docstring example. We start by going to the directory that contains our package directory. Once there, we run sphinx-quickstart to set things up. The first thing that sphinx-quickstart asks is what root path for the documentation should be. I find that it works well to use a folder called docs for this. So I suggest typing in docs here. Sphinx-quickstart will ask several more questions, which we can answer as we like. And then eventually it will ask if we want to enable the AutoDoc plugin. We do. The rest of the questions are not so important for our purposes. Once Sphinx-quickstart has completed, we'll want to run Sphinx-API docs to automatically generate Sphinx source files describing our package. Our docstrings are extracted and incorporated into these source files. Finally, when we want to generate the HTML, we can construct it by running make HTML from the command line. Sphinx will translate its source files, including the ones automatically generated by Sphinx-API doc, into HTML and store the result in the build directory that we specified. When we were going through Sphinx-quickstart's questions, if we edit our source code and want to update the HTML documentation, we can usually do it simply by running make HTML again. If we've made major changes to the packet structure, we'll need to run Sphinx-API doc again as well. So, Sphinx can be used as a documentation compiler, which turns our docstring source code into HTML compiled code. In this video, we learned how to format our docstrings to take advantage of automated tools, such as IDEs and the Sphinx documentation compiler. In the next video, we're going to look at one more cool advantage we can get from docstrings by actually executing the examples we include in our documentation and making sure they agree with what the code actually does.